Hello again, and welcome back to Building 61. This is Shop 61. I'm Ravi, and today we're going to talk about a machine called a thickness planer, also just called a planer. In a previous video, we talked about how we use the jointer to create our first flat face on a board. We need that first flat face to use the planer because the planer uses that as a reference to cut a second face parallel to that first face. So here's our planer. I have it unplugged so I can safely get in here and show you what's going on. We have our bed, which our piece slides across with our first face on the bed. We have our in-feed roller and out-feed roller, and they feed the piece through the machine. We have our cutter head, which takes the material off of the top of our piece. And we have our anti-kickback pawls, which are just a safety measure. They'll allow the piece to go forward and not move backward in case the cutter head catches. And this is our dust shield, which helps collect the dust and keeps us protected from the inner workings. To use the planer, we'll first want to make sure that our blast gate is open on our dust collector and the dust collector is turned on. The machine will be turned on, and then we'll take that first face that we created on the jointer. We'll place that on the bed, and we'll want to make sure it's nice and flat on the bed. We don't want the front end up or the tail end up. You can kind of feel when you have it on there. We'll feed the piece into the machine. We'll first go past the anti-kickback pawls, and then we'll hit the in-feed roller, and the in-feed roller will start feeding it so you won't have to. And then the cutter head will be taking material off the top of the piece, and then the out-feed roller will continue to send the piece out the other side. On the planer, we're underneath the blade with the blade spinning clockwise. So we want the grain to be going up towards the back of the board so that we get clean cuts. If we have the grain going up towards the front, we'll get more catches and tear out. So on this board, the grain is going up towards the back corner here. So we would want to send it through that way for it to be the cleanest. If we send it through that way with the grain pointing up towards the front, we'd get a lot more tear out. It would be less of a clean cut. To establish what thickness to set the machine on, we first need to determine the thickest part of our board and the thinnest part of our board. You can do that with calipers, but what I tend to do is set our workpiece on a flat surface and then just run a ruler around it and just find those high spots and low spots. On this particular piece, right here it's almost an inch thick, and right here it's just over 3/4 of an inch thick. So to get this surface nice and flat, we need to go slightly below our low point. And our first pass, we want to keep in mind our high point. With the planer, we don't want to take off more than a 1/16 at a time. If you take off more than a 1/16, it's tough on the machine, it's tough on the blades, and you won't get as clean of cut. It'll get way more tear out. So with this board, with this being the high spot, this being the low spot, as we run it through, I would expect it to take a bit of material off of here, first pass, and then a little bit more, second pass, and a little bit more on our third pass. And then, as always, before we send it through, pencil it so we know where we've been. We established on this board that our thickest point is almost an inch. We want to take a 1/16 or less off, especially on the initial pass. So we loosen this, and I'm going to bring this up to 15/16, which will probably be just a little bit less than a 1/16 of an inch, which is good for the first pass. And tighten that down. as we discussed with the joiner, the way that the planer cuts, it compresses the fibers a little bit and it burnishes the surface. So definitely sand this a little bit before either finishing or gluing. Thanks for joining us for this video. We'll see you in the next one.